love thy neighbor. The book says that. There's no way to say that it doesn't say that. It just says that. So I believe if we all decided to love our neighbor,
Well, I don't
that would
know.
be a good thing.
There's that. I wouldn't say that's an objective fact because you can also point to scripture where God said you can enslave your neighbors, right? And I would say that plenty of people would say that if you love someone, you want to enslave them. Did the church
Governance.
justify the Spanish Inquisition at any point in history?
Well, what do you
Yes.
mean by
The answer there
justify
is
it?
yes. They allowed it to happen.
Yeah, but I wouldn't argue that the
Okay, so
Spanish
then the church can be
Inquisition was
corrupted.
a bad thing necessarily. I would argue that the Spanish Inquisition,
Whoa!
what I'm arguing for is not that we follow the what's popular at the time or considered to be. There are objective Christian teachings or Christian beliefs, and such as love thy neighbor. The book says that. There's no way to say that it doesn't say that. It just says that. So I believe if we all decided to love our neighbor,
Well, I don't
that would
know.
be a good thing.
There's that. I wouldn't say that's an objective fact because you can also point to scripture where God said you can enslave your neighbors, right? And I would say that plenty of people would say that if you love someone, you want to enslave them. And this is one of the problems with the Bible, and I think in presupposing that it's objective is that it relies on interpretation, which interpretation is inherently subjective.
Well, that's why I'm saying I'm not saying that we should go with. Excuse me.
Mm.
That we should go with things that you can derive from the Bible that aren't Christian teaching. I'm saying love thy neighbor is a Christian teaching. It says those words.
It is an interpretation of a Christian. It's an interpretation. Right?
Well, an interpretation would be like
it is
that
how,
means I should
do
X.
You guys interpreted that part of the Bible, where again, there's
well,
other
but
parts
it's
of the
no.
Bible.
I mean, if
there's other
verbatim,
parts of the Bible that says you can enslave your neighbors. That Israelites could enslave others, but not
right. But that's not
Israel.
Christian teaching.
I mean,
that's the problem.
I mean, yeah, now because of the interpretation of the writings is to not go with that. It's again,
no, I mean, it was never Christian teaching. You said it yourself in the Hebrew. That was first off in the Jewish Old Testament and the Torah and whatnot. And while those are
the Old Testament was Christian teachings before the resurrection of Christ.
Well, there was no Christians before the resurrection of Christ. There's just Jews or Israelites or Hebrews, whatever you want to call them. So Christian teaching would say that slavery is wrong and that you should love thy neighbor, and that would be Christian teaching.
That would be your interpretation of Christian teaching. It's like the fact that there's so many denominations of Christianity in and of itself. You can't say there's an objective Christian teaching because you have denominations that disagree under the Christian foundation. So like that just couldn't possibly be objective. That's subjective. The fact
sure, and to clarify,
1,000. How many denominations of Christianity are there? Like 1,000? Like that alone.
For Protestantism, the numbers are anywhere from 1,000 to 40,000.
Yeah. So, and that's obviously what I'm saying. So it's not objective. It's this. You're talking about your subjective interpretation.
Well, I'm talking about obviously as a Catholic. I'm talking about Catholic social teaching.
Your denomination's subjective interpretation.
Well, Catholic isn't a denomination per se, but yeah. I mean, we've discussed it, and people can go refer to people can refer to our debate that we did similar to this topic about morality. But in Catholicism, we have a way that the buck stops here. This is the interpretation, and so I know that for all of time,
where does the buck stop with the church?
Yeah, with the infallible teachings, and so once it's said, there's no reneging it
as infallible.
There's no reneging
it. If it stops at the church, then it's up to the church's subjective interpretation. Like wherever you want to go, draw the line back. At some point, it's up to subjective interpretation. It's just that you presuppose it as infallible and objective.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'll admit that, but that's what I'm defending. So using these Christians taught that, these Christians taught that. Well, yeah, I mean.
So then in a world where everyone thought, in a world where everyone thought that the church was infallible and objective, and then the church decided, let's do slavery. I think that's a huge flaw, right? I think that's also
but you're just inventing a world that we don't live in. I mean, yeah, if that was the case,
the church has never justified objectively immoral things.
Correct.
Okay. What was the Spanish Inquisition?
Well, the Spanish Inquisition wouldn't be a teaching. That would be disciplinary
Did the
governance.
church justify the Spanish Inquisition at any point in history?
Well, What do you mean by
The answer there
justify?
is yes. They allowed it to happen. They were fine with it.
Yeah, well, the Inquisition.
They called for it. I don't know what
Well,
you're talking about.
yes,
If the
yes.
church has been corrupted, if something has been corrupted, then it can be corrupted. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, but I wouldn't argue that the
Okay, so then
Spanish
the church can be
Inquisition was
corrupted.
a bad thing necessarily. I would argue that the Spanish Inquisition.
Whoa!
Yeah, I would
That's
defend.
insane,
Yeah, I would
brother.
defend the Crusades. I would defend the Inquisition.
Okay, we got to
How,
debate those then. Yeah, no, hold on.
however,
now we got a whole other debate we got to do. Not right now, but we'll have to do like a
we'll
whole
add that
episode.
too. But that's got to be like a full episode because
full
we can't
episode debate.
spend 15 minutes on the Crusades.
No, that is an insane statement.
But
I guess here we went around the horn.
Yeah,
let
me wrap up what I was saying about the Inquisition before
I'll sum up.
I leave it off, making it sound like I support the basis of the Inquisition, the individual actions that people took throughout it. Same thing with the Crusades is a completely different story. Like, just briefly, like the Crusades, the Christian Holy Lands were being attacked first, and we called, hey, people go enlist, Christians around the world, and let's fight back to protect ourselves. And that is just like any other war. That was fine. Now, within that, people, obviously did horrible things against the wishes of the church, like sacking Constantinople, attacking Eastern Christians, the Western Christians attacking Eastern Christians, doing things that weren't in line with what they were actually told to go and do. And so I won't defend the individual actions, but the actual basis of the Inquisition and the Crusades, yeah. I would defend. But anyways, going back to the topic so we can wrap it up. Basically, what I'm advocating for is a society that values prudence, justice, fortitude, temperance, volunteering, family, community, hospitals, taking care of people, loving your neighbor as yourself, all these types of things, sacrificing for others. Those are the things. So saying something like slavery has absolutely nothing to do with my position because I'm not defending slavery. And so that's how I would end that. And I think the stats are clear that people who believe in these religious things, or at least adhere to them, have significantly better lives and significantly better effects on society.
How I would end mine, my TLDR is I think Christian values lead to a lot. They lead to some good things. They have good outcomes. They lead to, and I think a lot of the good outcomes, some of them can be better attributed to socioeconomic status. I think there's something to be said that rich people typically are more faithful Christians and religious people, but Christian values would undoubtedly lead to increased maternal mortality. Things like abortion would be shunned upon. We know when abortion is illegal, maternal mortality goes up by virtue of, you can go ahead. Yeah. What?
Oh, just on the abortion thing, you forget that this is in a world where most of us have the Christian values, so nobody would want to get the abortions.
I guess,
so it wouldn't be an issue.
I don't agree with that. We
wouldn't be trying to get it.
Do you think we don't have to spin the debate again, but every Christian isn't pro-life. There's Christians who are fine with abortion existing. There's religious organizations that support abortion. So the idea that no one would be for it, not true. But yeah, it would lead to increased maternal mortality through virtue of people getting the abortions, right? Like illegally, which are going to be more dangerous, and through just dying through pregnancy complications. It will lead to leaders like Donald Trump, the religious vote, specifically the Christian vote, the evangelical vote, overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump 3 times. Donald Trump is someone who me and Swall both agree is on the Epstein list, was closely affiliated with Epstein. I think he's pretty openly racist. He's clearly a bigot. He has 23 sexual assault allegations against him. He raped E. Jean Carroll, then defamed her. All these things, right? Fraud, business fraud. And this is what Christian values voted for. So if that's the conclusion of people who hold Christian values, vote for people like Donald Trump because they overwhelmingly did 3 times, I think that's also like a bad thing to follow. I think social oppression for women would be a huge problem. They're not allowed to be pope. They're seen as like, houses are supposed to be led by the patriarch. The man's supposed to be doing all this. And I think that if those values controlled society would then begin to be structured like that. Women might even be pushed out of the workplace. Who knows how far that would go? They definitely would be pushed out of positions of leadership. And then statistically, Christians are the highest religious group to commit hate crimes or bigotry against other religious minorities, specifically Islamophobia. A 2015 Public Religion Institute found 3 in every 4 Christians don't even think Islam should be in America. That is completely at odds. Christian exhibits or Oxford Academic found that Christians account for 62% of the hate crimes against Islamophobe or Muslims. The second biggest group is only like 5 or 6%, and it's Jewish people, which is also pretty closely intertwined there. So yeah, I just think regardless of like little statistical benefits, the moral implications of it would far outweigh that. So that would be how I summed it up. But also, it leads you to justifying things like the Spanish Inquisition when you hold Christian values, which we will have to debate because that is maybe one of the wildest things anyone's ever said to me.
I just want to add one thing, and I don't want to continue the debate. Obviously, we got to wrap it up, but I should have specified at the beginning that the majority of Christians today don't hold Christian values either. So committing a hate crime, voting for Trump, most of these things,
yeah, that's just
also
the
don't align with
argument
Christian
where I'm
values.
the only real Christian and no other.
Well, I'm not. I also don't fully hold them. Yeah. I'm just saying